I'm not done with this game yet, but I can say without a doubt that it has more politics than any other game I've played, with enemy step and style switching and devil trigger and shuffle and snatch and trick and 10 out of 10 game. I was really impressed by the intro and general early hours of this game, but as it went on, it became more and more clear how padded the game is. And it started to become harder and harder to recommend to adults with jobs. That being said though, this is like everything I would have wanted out of a game when I was like 15. And even now, as an adult with a job, there's still a lot to love about it, so let's talk about it. Starting with the positives, I love all the silly middle-aged men in this game. I mean, you got Gav,
Mind telling me what the fuck just happened?
Byron, Sid.
Kill yourself.
Hell, as someone who grew up with JRPGs and is getting older by the second, I can respect in general that you spend most of the time in this game with Clive in his 30s. That's a rarity for most JRPGs, and especially Square Enix ones. And let me tell you, that tight little waist of his can just fit so much emotional trauma in it. I mean, it's fantastic. I do think Jill's pretty cool too, but the game kinda seems to forget about her sometimes. Make no mistake, this game is about men. Being manly, having sex, with each other. The characters in general are great, and I've found the story to be pretty compelling. The music's definitely got some bangers, and goddamn, the boss fights. I'm gonna be honest, at first, I didn't think I'd care much for the icon fights. I thought they'd just be kinda gimmicky light shows and lack mechanical substance, but nah, they are absolutely the highlight. Let me tell you, I love starting a boss fight for the first time, and a tutorial message pops up for a new ability. It's like the hypest shit to me. I shit you not, it's like at the end of every story beat, you just fight a boss on the spectacle level of Kingdom Hearts 2's final boss. And like, that Xemnas fight just keeps fucking going, and that's not a knock on it, mind you, I love it. It's peak cinematic gaming. Like, if you play through any of these icon fights and don't go, okay, that was pretty fucking sweet, at least once, then I don't know what's wrong with you. And like, just when you think they can't impress you with them anymore, they just do. I literally had to pause and put down the controller in the middle of the Titan fight, just to process what the hell I was playing. That was basically when I said, okay, yeah, maybe this is worth making a quick video on. I mean, by the end of it, I was thinking the whole thing felt like a wonderful 101 or Bayonetta boss, and well, yeah, go figure. That said, this game will just be like grabbing groceries for the old folk for 2 hours straight before it decides to jump into the hypest shit you've ever seen.
Just this very morn, I found him with his nose buried in my nuts.
What the fuck?
This game's pacing is honestly kind of a mess because of it, but like, some of it is good for world building and character building, so it's hard to say how much of it should have stayed and how much of it should have gone. But am I really going to want to replay this game on the difficulty setting that actually has some challenge? Or am I going to get bored when I have to go out and collect 5 pieces of sand for the main story to progress? Will I want to walk back and forth through the hideout because the run function doesn't work in there for some reason, and there's no fast travel points within it, and do all the constant mandatory dialogue mashing just so I can redo some boss fights? I don't know. You go talk to one guy, you sparkle on, jog over to the next guy, sparkle on again, rinse and repeat, and I never knew Dung had so many uses. And look, I have played 9 Yakuza games and all of the Xenoblade games to completion, so maybe I can't really complain, but for some reason it feels particularly damaging to the structure of this game. Though, I also find it very damaging to Xenoblade 3's pacing too, for what it's worth. Maybe it's the DMC combat parallels that make the time wasting feel so unflattering. Most action games have to be a lot tighter paced. And there's like, no fun way to speed up your movement in the overworld either. I know you get the Chocobo, but like, having to get on and off it every time you want to like open a treasure chest or fight an enemy is just kind of annoying. The DMC player in me wants to spam lunge to get around, but that ain't happening. I mean, look how long it takes to recover from a single missed lunge. Looking at it pessimistically, it seems like they made the movement feel like this to pad out the game length, which would blow. But the other side of me says they just want you to take the game slow and admire the beautiful environments. Well, first off, if that was the case, maybe you shouldn't have shipped the game with untoggleable motion blur. Which they did fix, to be fair. And second off, I spend most of my time playing PS2 classic water-based puzzle game Aqua Aqua and Picross. So don't worry, I can tell. This game looks stunning. Maybe it sounds nitpicky, but making moving around feel more fun would genuinely bump this game up a solid amount for me. As it is, the only fun thing about the gameplay is combat. Which sounds stupid maybe, like yeah, the only fun part of the action game is combat. What's the problem? But it makes up less of the game than you would ultimately think, so yeah, it kind of is a problem. The combat itself is definitely objectively too easy, and there should have been more options for difficulty. But in this game's favor, all the moves feel real good, and it takes a lot of good stuff from Devil May Cry for the moveset. I generally wouldn't prefer this kind of cooldown system for an action game, but once you get 3 icons, it gets a lot more entertaining. You have to throw them out more often, but trying to manage them so you can max out your stagger damage is pretty damn fun. A lot of the icon moves have their own little gimmicks too, which is fun. I particularly like the ones that involve countering enemy attacks. You can also choose to not use potions too much to make the challenge feel more compelling, but I will be the first to admit that you really shouldn't have to make your own difficulty in a game. It's not your job. Story-wise, I really enjoy the tone. It does a great job keeping it real. It's pretty dark throughout, but as Clive develops as a character and meets new, wonderful people, he regains his feeling of humanity after being enslaved for over a decade. And I mean, it's so hard not to feel for him. One of the things that really drove it home for me was when you're playing as teen Clive, and you know, all the Rosarian soldiers love him and think he's cool, and life is just generally good. Well, relatively speaking. And then they start drunkenly singing this song. It's the anthem of Rosaria, and it's like, ah, okay, that's cute.
My friend, louder!
And then of course everything goes to shit. But you know, you come back home after like 13 years or something, and then everything's been fucked by the Empire, but then, what's that? You still hear this little tune playing in the area theme. And that's how you know there's still hope for Clive and all the people of Rosaria. It's a beautiful little moment. Also, I will always give points to a story that acknowledges that things generally have to get a little bit worse in the world before they can really get better. Sometimes you just gotta commit a little terrorism to stop racism and climate change. And you know what? I can respect that. Like I said earlier, I'm not at the end of the game yet, but I'm definitely getting close. But I don't think the ending will drastically change how I feel about the game, unless they just really shit the bed. But I don't really want this to be a spoiler review anyway, so don't worry about it. I'd be disappointed that the politics of this world go down the drain in the second half, but that's not really a problem with this game specifically. A lot of fantasy stories just tend to do that as stakes rise to astronomical proportions. Funny how slaying gods is an easier topic to address than fixing broken political and social systems, isn't it? I think at the end of the day, the story is actually deceptively simple, but the in-game glossary is a godsend. More games need that shit. So anyways, to sum it up, this game has some of the hypest shit I've seen in recent games, but you really gotta waste some time to get there.
Just this very morn, I found him with his nose buried in my nuts.
There's a price to entry, but is it ultimately worth it? Yeah, probably. I really can't emphasize enough just how happy this game makes me when it finally hits its highs. I'd say this game lands like an 8 out of 10 for me, give or take. I'm definitely gonna beat it, but when I do, it's only gonna be my second Final Fantasy game I've finished. But not for a lack of trying. Oh god, this list really invalidates the whole review, doesn't it? Just let me get this straight. You need 5 sprigs of cilantro for the instant death pill, and 10 fallen cod pieces for the hypermithril engine. Understood. I'll go air combo some wolves for you. Sorry, Strider, that's all I got.